Hello and welcome back. In this video we'll be talking about the beginning of how to create your own custom reports. I say the beginning because this will be broken up into two videos so as not to overwhelm you in one monolithic video. We're going to break it up into some smaller pieces and make it a little easier to digest. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's navigate to the reports section of the application where I am now. We'll right click in the My Reports and create New Report. We'll call this My New Report, and we'll hit OK. After naming our report and hitting OK, we'll be presented with a grid. Now the grid, as you see it, is based largely on the paper size that you have selected for your report. A default will be set when you first create the report, but you can override that default in the report options over here on the left. We'll look at that and the other options now. Go ahead and click Report Options and we see some of these. The auto refresh rate is here. We can choose to set our report so that when we view it, it will automatically refresh every 30 seconds, 1 minute, or 5 minutes, or we can leave it off. For our purposes, we'll leave it off. The paper size can be letter, legal, or A4, whichever your preferred is, and we can choose to have that in portrait or landscape orientation. Also, we can show a page header or footer. The header and footer will both appear as many times as there are pages in your printed report, but will only show once on the screen view of the report. You can use a header and footer for things like the name of the person who created the report, if it's important that it show on every page, or the title of the report, things along those lines. On the time span tab, we can set the time span for the report as a whole. For example, the report is made up of multiple charts, and each of those charts may have an explicit time span set. You can have one chart show data for January, one for February, one for March, etc. Or we can have each of those charts simply inherit the time span set here for the report as a whole. We can set it for some useful presets like today, yesterday, last 24, this week, last week, this month, last month, etc. Or we can choose an explicit time span and pick the exact month, day, hour, minute, second that we start the report and the exact month, day, hour, minute, second where the report ends. Finally, we can choose a calendar span occurrence and use one of the calendars that you remember from our calendars video to define the extreme start and extreme end of the report time span. For our purposes, we will choose a preset of today and leave it just like that. Down here at the bottom we see we can allow the user to modify the report time span at view time or not. If we uncheck this, the user will not be able to adjust the time span tab on the report when they go to run it. If you want to do this, you can kind of foolproof your reports and set them up so that the user cannot accidentally misadjust them. Let's go to the Data Filters tab. The Data Filters tab allows you to pick which machines this report is going to run for. For example, we could say test lathe here and drag it across, and it would run only for that one machine. If we uncheck the Allow User to Modify Report Filters at View Time option here, then it would only run it for that test lathe, and the user would not be able to edit that. It would run for that and that machine only. We'll leave this blank and we'll actually remove this particular machine so that we'll let the user decide which machines they want to run it for. We'll go ahead and save out those options. We're happy with those. Over here on the left, make note of the ability to insert rows if you wanted to add more rows to your view. You can remove rows, apply templates, which we'll go into in another time, and then the Save As and Close. Save As is important because we can take any existing report, any of the stock reports that come with StatusWatch, and you can save a duplicate of those reports and then tweak them to your liking, thereby leaving the original intact but allowing you to adjust them and have a robust, complete report as a starting point. Let's go into the actual chart and report elements here. Over here on the left we see we can insert text, insert image, or insert chart table, or beacon. Beacon is a special chart that warrants its own editor. Text and image are pretty self-explanatory, but let's go ahead and review them. If I select a few cells here and choose Insert Text, and I say This is my amazing report. We'll make it bold and hit insert. It of course inserts the text. I could have formatted that differently, put it centered or right justified, adjusted the font size up or down, etc., etc. And that's the text editor. It's pretty self-explanatory. Additionally, we can insert an image. You select a bunch of cells here, say insert image, and it would ask you to browse to an image on your hard drive that will then be uploaded to the server and displayed in the chart. If you had, for example, company logo or company letterhead or something that needed to appear at the top of the report, this would be a good place to insert that. We won't bother at this point. Finally, the third type that I'd like to go over right now is the beacon. And the beacon will select some cells and say insert beacon, and a beacon is a special chart. It always displays real-time data. It always displays the current value of a particular data point, or is always based on the current value of a particular data point. Let's pull it up and we take a look. Beacons always come with a default state. This is not removable and must always remain at the bottom of the list. I'll go into that in just a minute. We can name the beacon if we choose to. We don't need to, but it can be useful for diagnosing problems, as if something goes wrong with your chart when you try and run it, if you've put in some value that isn't valid somehow, the error that you get back will likely give you the name of the chart or table or beacon that is our offender. So if everything is named untitled, then it may be difficult to track that down if you have lots of elements in your report. For our purposes, we're going to leave it untitled and leave the description blank for now and go ahead and dive right into it. Let's pull up some additional states. I'm going to add a new state to this beacon, and a beacon is quite simply just a colored box, and the background color is dependent on the state of a particular data point. You can set up some rules and say when the machine is cutting, I want the box to be green. When the machine is broken, I want the box to be red, so that you can look and get a visual indication of how a particular machine or set of machines is doing with a single glance and have it all color-coded. Let's go ahead and say, here's my new state. I'm going to choose a new background color for it. I'd like my background color to be bright red, and I'd like my text to say downtime. Alright, now the expression and expression value that you see here are which data point are we watching with this particular rule, with this particular state, and what must it equal in order for this to resolve. So we'll choose expression here, we'll go under our assets, go down to our test lathe, expand him out, and we're going to choose bad states. And when this is true, we want it to be red. The way this reads then is when any of the states in the bad states data point group are true, then the bad states data point group is true. And when the bad states data point group is true, this box will display the word downtime, and it will be red background color in it. So if I were to run this report and one of my machines was broken at the time, my machine that I'm monitoring is broken, it would show this as a red box. Let's add another state, and we'll add a desirable states one, a green one. We'll set the background color to a nice green, and we'll set the text to be all clear. And for our expression, we will again choose that same machine, our test lathe, and we will instead choose the good states data point group. When that is true, we would like a green box to be displayed in this position instead of the red box. Now these rules are evaluated in a top-down order, which means the first one that it runs into, the first state that it runs into that resolves correctly, it will display that. If, for example, you happen to have two states listed out here that could both be true at the same time, whichever one is listed first top to bottom, is the one that will be evaluated should both of them be true at the same time. Now, in this case, ours are mutually exclusive, and that's probably the better way to do it. Remember that the default state will always be at the bottom. It always gets resolved last. If none of the other states resolve correctly, then it will fall to the default state and display that particular value in this box. For ours, we've got a nice gray and it says default state. I'm going to change the text from default state to none of the above. Now, if it is not downtime and it is not all clear, it will show a gray box that says none of the above. And that covers beacons. Let's go ahead and save that guy, and he'll show up right there. Alright, that takes care of beacons, text cells, and images. And that gives you a brief understanding of how to assemble each of those. In the next video, we'll talk about the centerpiece, if you will, of the entire reporting package, and that is the chart and the table. We'll see you in that video. Thank you.